There are a lot of things that people might not tell you about working in the production music industry. Sure, you might, find tutorials about writing cues or running a DAW or even pitching to libraries, but what about the hard stuff? What about the emotional grind or those moments where your best cue you've ever written gets continually passed over, or when you realize that being good isn't quite good enough? So today I am back with even more inconvenient truths about life as a production music composer. And I'm not here to discourage you. I'm just hopefully here to prepare you, because if you've been doing this a while, then chances are you've already experienced some of these things. But if you're brand new to the industry, well, welcome to the world of sync. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Kropf, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, where each week we talk about all things production and library music. So whether you are just starting out or maybe you're already seeing a ton of placements on TV, I promise you are in the right place. As always, today's episode is made possible thanks to the support of our family, friends, and neighbor subscribers who are composers just like you, working to write better cues and find success in the sync music industry. And 52 Cues is there to help make that happen with live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds of hours of video archives, and pitching to actual real music libraries. So if you're curious about joining us, you could head over to 52cues.com or stick around, because I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later in today's episode. Speaking of later in today's episode, I'm going to be featuring a cue that I wrote last year that is a world hip-hop cue. Wrote this for Discovery Channel, and it's called Dharma, Chameleon, so you definitely want to stick around. But first, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. Now, I have done two other episodes on inconvenient truths for the production and library music composers. These are things that we just kind of have to get our mind right with if we're looking to work in this industry. And I'll put links up there to those previous episodes that you can check out. So this is part 3 of this series. And so I've got five new inconvenient truths. And the first truth is that talent alone is not enough. Said another way, being good isn't good enough. Raw talent doesn't automatically translate to success, because I feel like once you get to a certain professional level where everybody is using a lot of the same tools, we've all watched the same tutorials, maybe followed the same podcaster. We've put our thousands of hours, maybe even our Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours worth of work into this. And there's kind of a point of diminishing returns at the top level where everyone is pretty good. But being good isn't good enough, right? This isn't high school where, only the very cream of the crop actually kind of make it. It's meaning, I don't know about you. I went to band competitions and things in high school, and there were always the same people that you would see at every single competition. And when you would be an honors band or whatever, you would see the same people. At least I did in the percussion section from this school and this school, because every school had their kind of standout performers. Well, once you get to the level where you are starting to get placements on TV, it's much more about the intangibles that go beyond being good, being talented. Things like consistency and discipline and tenacity and persistence. I mean, these things, I think these are the real traits that will separate folks who won't really do this more long-term and those who are finding success. Consistency, that means you are writing consistently, you are following up consistently, you have turned this into a habit. a disciplined habit, even maybe when you don't want to write, maybe if you're not feeling it, maybe if you don't have as much time, but finding the pockets of time, being consistent with it, and being persistent with it, even when things don't seem to be working for you. And we're going to talk about some other inconvenient truths a little bit later, which will kind of touch on this, but it's much more about work ethic. It's much more about, are you easy to work with? Are you consistent? Do you hit your deadlines? These intangibles that go beyond just how good the cue is. That's what can really, really separate you. So that's the first thing. Talent. Talent alone isn't nearly enough, because in the long run, work ethic is going to supersede that. Number 2, in this industry, relationships are still the highest form of currency. And as crummy as it might feel, who you know can open doors for you. I've been listening to Scott Galloway, who is an economist and an econ professor at NYU. And he talks a lot about friendship and how important friendship is, especially as you are moving into a career and just getting to know people. Like the relationships that you form in college, for example, many of those reverberate throughout your life. Friends you might make in high school, friends you might make, at work or whatever. So the social fabric of just community in general also applies to a professional setting. Because, Scott pulled a stat, something like the vast majority of jobs and interviews and successful hires, the majority of folks who get hired to a company like Google, for example, they have a person that they know who works there. There is already a pre-existing connection. So yes, who you know can open doors for you. And so it is your job to go get to know those people. And you can do that through virtual conferences, if you have local meetups, if you're looking to get into like games, for example, you need to be going to game jams. You need to make yourself available. Going to the Production Music Conference is super valuable, super important for me. I plan on going this year, and I'm sure I'll see some of you over there. If you go to the Taxi Road Rally, that's a perfect example. If you join the PMA, the Production Music Association, periodically, you used to be every month, but they're kind of not doing it every month. But anyway, they do virtual Zoom hangouts and coffee hours, and we just get in the Zoom room and start chatting. You do that a couple of times, and then you see them at the conference, and before you know it, you have a real relationship. And I think I've said this on the show before, but you can accomplish so much more with like a 5-minute conversation, in a coffee shop than you can with the best worded email. A handshake and a conversation and eye to eye, if not in person, in Zoom, can accomplish so much more than the best pitch, because you have the opportunity to recognize the humanity in the other person, and you get to know people, and people want to work with people they like. They want to work with people they trust, and that only happens through relationships. And I'm not using the term networking because I feel like networking kind of, I don't know, it feels really kind of corporate-y. And so I think of them more as relationships. These are going to be genuine connections with people who are decision makers, people who can help you. Maybe they're collaborators. They could be editors, music supervisors, publishers, lyricists, other songwriters, composers, instrumentalists, folks that you want to collaborate with and work with. That starts with relationship. And in these conversations that you have, yes, when you go to a conference, you might be talking about yourself and this is what I do. Here's my business card and QR code and all that kind of stuff. But you never know kind of like where the conversation is going to go. And so you might find yourself talking about something that you don't realize is a connection point for the other person. For example, last week at Full Sail, we hosted a workshop, a vocal workshop for the students at Full Sail. We brought in some graduates who have gone on and found success, and one of them is a vocal coach. And so we're sitting at coffee. We're kind of before the workshop, just getting to know each other, not at the venue, not in the green room, but we went to Starbucks. We got some coffee just to talk, kind of go over the day. And through the process of our conversation, I discovered that she's a great vocalist. I knew that, but she's super hip to sync, and she is a top liner. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to start a collaboration with Jeff LaPlante doing more Latin pop cues, and she is a Spanish-speaking Latin pop top liner. So I'm pretty sure we're going to work with her. And that only happened because I made space for relationship building when we were meeting up. Like I said, it was super deliberate. We're not going to meet at the venue. We're going to meet and get coffee ahead of time, like 2 hours before load in, and just hang out, share life. What do you do? Here's what I do. And before you know it, a connection point comes up, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is something that I need, and I didn't even think of this person. This is something that she loves to do. She's super talented at it. And that begins the trust building, because people want to work with people they like and they trust. I mean, and even if somebody else has, technically better music, all things being equal, folks are going to work with the people they like more. Because if you can work with the person, if you enjoy working with the person and they're dependable, then you will keep calling them. So that's number 2. Real relationships are still the highest form of currency in the entertainment industry. That's number 2. Number 3, getting rejected is normal. Because you're going to hear no much more than you hear yes. And it's not personal. It's just part of the process. And learning to expect it, learning how to kind of absorb it, and then learning how to keep going through it, that's vital for a sustainable career in the production music industry. And we've talked a lot about that and about how to handle it, through the year of Taxi from a couple of years ago, and feeling rejected, and what do you do with that? And so it's normal to hear a no. And I've used this analogy on the podcast before, but not expecting never to hear no is like a boxer expecting not to get hit. A boxer's job isn't to avoid getting hit. A boxer's job is to absorb the hits and keep swinging in the fight. Because a boxer's going to get hit. It's absolutely normal. And I get it. It's hard not to take rejection personally because we put so much of ourselves into the music that we write. Music creation, as much as I talk about that this isn't art, as much as I talk about artisan approach and the commodification of our creativity, as much as I talk about that, our creative place is still a very intimate, personal place. We are still creating something from within us. And so hearing no in an opportunity that you are super excited about will step on that. At least I think it should. If it doesn't, I'm trying to see if I actually want to say this. If it doesn't prickle you just a little bit, then maybe there's not enough of yourself in the cues. Do I mean that? You guys kind of hear what I'm saying, right? Like if you are so emotionally removed from the music to where you feel nothing when you get a return, then I'm not sure. How you handle rejection, that's one thing. But I would say that if you are feeling absolutely nothing when you get a rejection, then either maybe you weren't trying hard enough, or maybe you have figured out the secret to completely divorce any emotional investment into these opportunities. Or, to be fair, maybe this is completely a hobby. And I don't take it personally, when I lose a race on Mario Kart, or if I don't get a piece of loot that I rolled on in World of Warcraft. I don't take that personally. I might be bummed out, but I don't take it personally. But getting rejected is absolutely normal. It's stinging is also absolutely normal. But what you do with that and how you respond to that, that's where professionalism, and that's what pros who do this for a living, that's what they have mastered, or at least are working to master. I haven't mastered it. I've been at this well over a decade, and getting rejections still prickle a little bit. And now that I'm walking into more of a publishing role, now when I pitch things to libraries, or if I pitch things to other opportunities, and then I hear feedback and they don't like everything that I've worked really hard with these composers and they don't dig it, I take that personally. Meaning I'm as invested as a publisher as I am as a composer. And so there's a little part of my heart that hurts along with the composers. And I see this a lot with the briefing room and everything that we have going on with our family folks. We are writing albums. We are pitching albums to real libraries for real placement opportunities. For example, 2 years ago, we pitched up for a golf broadcast. We put an entire album together for a golf broadcast. And we sent it up, and the publisher turned them all down. Like, nope, this is not hitting the mark. And so I'm thinking, oh man, how did I miss that? Is this me? Is it the writers? Is it my teaching? Is it the feedback I'm giving? Is this just not good enough? Right? As it turned out, the publisher had a very specific idea for what he wanted, and none of the cues hit that. And so moving forward, we got more information for the brief. And it was later, the next year when we did another album, it was great. I don't even think there were any returns. If there were, just a handful of tweaks. And he still wants the album, the original golf album. I still see a home for them in the library, but for that specific brief, it was a hard pass on everything. And so I felt like, oh man, I really missed the mark. And I got super bummed out about it. And then I had to have the conversation with the composers, telling them weren't really digging this. And so we pitched and we tried. We're in the middle of pitching another group of trailer cues for a very, very, very successful trailer house. And we'll see what happens. We took our best shot. And knowing that, I have zero regrets. Whatever happens to those cues, if the library wants them and he wants to start pitching them, cool. If not, I know we didn't leave anything out on the field. We tried our absolute best. If he doesn't like them, then yes, I'm going to be bummed out. But knowing that it's normal, that it's part of the process, that every single return or rejection, and this sounds super cheesy, like some kind of after school special, but it's an opportunity to grow through it and ask yourself, what do I do in this moment? Some composers just like compartmentalize and start writing something else. Other composers like me, I need like a cool down period. I have to stop thinking about it. I get really kind of quiet, and Shannon knows it. Shannon I can't hide it from her. We've been married 31 years and I can't hide it from her. I try, but she'll be like, Dave, like, what's up? I'm like, no, nothing. And then the next day, okay, well, yeah, I heard back and they didn't like it. And I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to move forward. How do I process this? So she's a really good supporting sounding board. But I personally need some time to process it so that I can unpack, like, what's the takeaway here? So learning to expect rejection, learning how to absorb it, and then keep moving on, which points to our first point about tenacity and persistence. Persisting through a return or a rejection. That's how you grow. So that's number 3. Number 1, talent alone isn't enough. Number 2, relationships are still the highest form of currency. And number 3, being rejected is normal. All right, number 4, inconvenient truth of being a production music composer. You will never stop having to learn. Notice that's different than you'll never stop learning, because we're always learning. We're always getting better. But you'll never stop having to learn, because the industry is changing. Lord, is it changing? You know, whether it's styles, formats, software, expectations, trends, fads, AI, things are evolving fast. Look at where music production is now, especially like in the AI space, which is this 800-pound gorilla in the room that everybody's just kind of ignoring in the periphery, and hopefully it won't like run at them. But the industry is evolving. I mentioned that we were just wrapped up this trailer brief, and the trends in trailers always change. What's popular, whether it's remixing old songs or whether it's Brahms and Baums. I listened recently to the 20,000 Hertz podcast episode on trailers, and they played some like old trailers, the original Star Wars trailer. They played a trailer for like Multiplicity by Michael Keaton. They played another trailer for like the Force Awakens, and comparing modern trends versus older trends. And, you know, at one point it would have been unfathomable to imagine a trailer without Don LaFontaine going like, in a world, like that would have been completely unfathomable. Now that sounds kind of corny to have a voiceover, especially a voiceover basically giving you all the plot details. So right now it feels unfathomable to not have trailers with Brahms and percussive impacts and hits and risers and, you know, pithy lines of dialogue. But that style will change. Where it goes next, I don't know. Trailers are a whole ecosystem in and of themselves. And there are people who do nothing but trailers, and they focus on the trends of trailers and how like a school of fish will just amorphously blob onto one trend, and then everybody kind of feeding frenzies over here, and then one little fish will go over here, find something else, and then the school will go, oh my gosh, we're going over here now, and then feeding frenzy over here. But the industry is constantly evolving. Technology, styles, expectations, quality. And so if you're only doing what you currently know how to do because you're either uninterested, unable, or unwilling to expand and to learn beyond that, then I think that's a dead end. I think it's a dead end, because lifelong learning and being a lifelong student of the craft of composing and production and library music, it's the only way you're going to stay relevant. The only way. Even when it's kind of sucky. Even when it feels like existential dread. I'm looking at you, 800-pound AI gorilla. I don't know what's going to happen with AI. I sure as heck have talked about it plenty here. But I can't be scared of it, but I have to be aware of it. And finding opportunities to incorporate tools like AI into my workflow. I still believe that AI isn't going to replace jobs, but professionals using AI will replace professionals not using AI. Because I think what was once easy is AI. What was once hard will now be easy, and what was once impossible will now be hard. Which then begs the question, is there now a new stratosphere of impossible? Maybe. We have to stay relevant. Learning new things, learning new software, learning new plugins, learning new trends, learning new styles. You know, I teach at Full Sail, I teach a lecture on hip hop, specifically hip hop used in production and library music. And Full Sail attracts a wide range of students, from like producers and beat makers to acoustic folk singer-songwriters. And everybody, or all of the music students, take my class. And they all will write hip-hop cues, because we cannot ignore hip-hop. Hip-hop's been around 50 years, and its influence is absolutely undeniable. Not just in the hip-hop genre, but the hip-hop flavor that finds its way everywhere. From Star Trek trailers to promos for NASCAR, to plucky little dramedy cues that I write that show up on, yes, like Oprah Winfrey Network, but also like German TV and Chopped and Dr. Pimple Popper. You know, I've infused hip-hop elements into these dramedy cues, and they get love. And part of doing that, part of kind of learning that, is embracing a new trend. Well, new, it's 50 years old, but embracing a trend and using it so that I can add something new into my dramedy cues. And so far, it's worked out pretty well. So if there is something blocking you because you're afraid to learn it, then I think you need to push through that, because I don't think you can only stick to doing what you've always done. That's a cul-de-sac. There is a shelf life on that, because the trends are always going to change. So you'll never stop having to learn. That's number 4. And then finally, number 5, the 5th inconvenient truth. Most of your cues are not going to get placed. A large percentage of your catalog just won't make air, and that's okay. Especially on the front end of your career, as you are learning to do this, as you're learning form, structure, production skills, mix, you're networking, you're making relationships, you're getting into libraries, and it takes a while for that whole snowball to really gather momentum. But, I said earlier, talent isn't enough. Being good isn't enough. Having an amazing cue isn't enough. Sometimes it's just down to luck or timing or the context or right place, right time. I know that seems not that helpful, but I'm only telling you this so that when it happens, and when the cue that you are most proud of is just idling in some dark corner of a server, then you have to be okay with that. And the point isn't to like, I want that cue back. No, that's not the right point, especially if it's exclusive and everything. Just move on, right? Write, submit, forget, repeat. I tell you what's really frustrating about this is when you have a cue that you are really proud of, that you've really worked hard on, you've submitted it for a specific show, and you watch the show and something simpler or something that just isn't, dare I say, as good makes air. That's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. Because you're like, mine was better. Why did this make air? And I have no idea, but it's normal. The takeaway is that doesn't make your cue worthless. And you never know if your cue will get placed eventually. You know, my first season writing for the NFL on CBS, I was hungry for it. I wanted it really, really bad. And so I submitted, I think, 17 cues for that brief. And this was early, where I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really have my workflow down. I didn't really understand the form and the structure. So it was a lot of revisions and a lot of back and forth. Probably spent 15 to 20 hours per cue. So I did 17 cues. And of those 17, only 5 actually got placed. And of those 5, only 2 saw rotation, meaning that they were showing up kind of every week in certain segments, which is amazing. But if I think back to the math on, okay, what was my dollar per hour on those 17 cues or on those 12 cues that season never saw the light of day. But here's a little bit of a silver lining. You know, those 2 cues that saw rotation, they are still getting placed some 10 plus years later. One of them showed up during the NCAA tournament. Yep, there it is. A cue from 2015 showing up again in 2025, making me a few bucks. Now, what about the other 12 cues? Well, I think most of them over the course of the last 10 years or so have gone on to at least get one placement, because I believe that a good cue never goes ultimately unused, but you have no control over that. You know, success isn't always tied to artistic merit. During the Star Trek episode, the episode I did about what I learned about life or production music I learned from Star Trek, that episode, I'll try to have a link here for you. Captain Picard has a quote that goes something like, "It is possible to commit no mistakes and still fail. That is not weakness, that is life." And I try to embrace that. It doesn't make it any less sucky. It doesn't make it not heartbreaking. And it doesn't make it just, okay, that's fine. It sucks. It sucks being super proud of something that never gets air, while things which are, in your opinion, less than or artistically not as good or whatever. That's tough. But it doesn't make you writing those cues a waste of time, because it's all part of the process. Just trust the process. Yes, the production music world is kind of like a lottery, you know? And so if you're taking big swings with huge, super huge opportunities, then you're like buying a lotto ball, like a Mega Millions jackpot. For example, a big trailer brief comes in and the payout's $175,000. That's like buying a Mega Millions lotto ticket. And a lot of people are buying that same ticket. But it's just like buying the one, and when they call out the numbers, you hope you get it. But, you know, if you're writing little plucky dramedy cues and hip hop beats that can get on air and like dramatic piano thing, if you're just kind of working through your process, that's much more kind of like buying a scratcher. And this also would pertain to folks who are artists, who are making an album and they're going to go on tour and they want to make their living off of these 12 songs that they wrote. That's kind of like buying the Mega Millions ticket versus scratchers, where you might buy like 10 of them and scratch them off. And this one's a $10 winner. This one's a $100 winner. This one's a $5 winner. The hope is that it is a net positive, that you don't lose money, but $5 here, $10, $200, maybe $1,000. Oh, awesome. So that it all builds up. And that is my philosophy. And that's the approach that I take. It's why I don't take a ton of really big swings. These high risk yet high reward opportunities, I tend to shy away from. I'm much more about the smaller opportunities. But what that means is that you're buying a lot of lottery tickets, and some of them will be empty. They'll be nothing. Some of them should be a winner, but are just going to go unused. Some of your best cues, and most of your cues, including some of your best cues, just won't get used and won't make air. And that's okay. That's normal. Don't fight for those old cues. Just kind of move on with your creative life, process it, learn from it, and leverage everything you've learned, because remember, we never stop learning. Leverage that into your next cue. So those are the 5 new or even more inconvenient truths. Talent, number 1, talent alone isn't enough. Number 2, relationships are still the highest form of currency. Number 3, getting rejected is absolutely normal. Number 4, you never stop having to learn. And number 5, most of your cues, even your best ones, probably won't get used. But what about you? What do you think? Do you resonate with any of these inconvenient truths? And do you have any other truths, any other hard cheese to have to kind of deal with as production music composers? I would love to hear from you. Please let me know in the comments below. I do read all of those and appreciate your comments. So we are going to take a quick break, and you're going to hear from an alternate universe version of me tell you about how you can join 52 Cues. And when we return, we're going to be taking a listen to Dharma, Chameleon, which is a world hip hop cue written for Discovery Channel. We'll be right back. Every week I talk about how this episode and the podcast and the community, the channel, would not be possible without the amazing support of our family, friends, and neighbors, subscribers of 52 Cues, who do pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this going. And in addition to being thriving members of the community, as well as supporting me and Shannon and everything that we're doing here, they also receive extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, hundreds and hundreds of hours of video archives, weekly cue breakdowns, production music almanac, living ebook, and the opportunities to submit to real music libraries. Now, it's free to join 52 Cues. You can just go to 52cues.com and sign up, be a member of the community. We would love to have you. It will always be free to join the community. But if you've been watching, or if maybe this is your first time, but if you're wondering, is there a way to kind of level up my production music skills in the industry, meeting like-minded, super friendly, very generous composers? Then why don't you think about subscribing? Memberships start at around $4 a month, and we would love to have you. Again, that's 52cues.com. That was Dharma Chameleon, which is an Indian-infused world hip-hop cue that featured sitar, multiple layers of percussion. And for you family and friends folks, you can check out a complete breakdown of this cue coming up over in the community. But that is going to do it for me this week. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know you have a ton of options, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio on the go. Just know that I sincerely appreciate you. And I hope you join me next week, because next week we will be live at 4 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Let me make sure that that's right. Yeah, 4 p.m. Thursday, where we will be going over the submissions for our Composer Quest. And it is not too late to join the Composer Quest. Just go over to 52cues.com, join the community. It is free to join. And the Composer Quest is different versions of Pomp and Circumstance. You know, the graduation song. We are going to be featuring different versions of that cue. So if you want to join us. It's not too late. It is free to jump into the Composer Quest, and we are going to be featuring those cues and doing live voting next week. So looking forward to that. That's live 4 p.m. Eastern next week. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate you. I do hope that you've had a good week. And if it hasn't been that great, that's okay, because next week is going to turn around. How do I know that? It's because I know, trust, and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2025 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community, submitting your cue for review, or becoming a member subscriber of 52 Cues, head over to 52cues.com.